On today's episode of Stronger Marriage Connection, Dr. Liz sits down with Amber Anderson, who opens up about her journey through a painful divorce and the lessons she's learned along the way. Amber shares how she found hope while navigating the challenges of co-parenting and re-entering the world of dating as a single mom. She offers heartfelt insights and practical advice on moving forward with intention, facing fears, and balancing the demands of raising kids while dating. You'll hear how Amber approaches dating differently than when she was single and what she's learning about resilience, connection, and growth in this new chapter of life. Amber Anderson is a single mom of two, a full-time certified occupational therapy assistant, and the founder of Movement and In-Home Safety Advocates. She recently launched her own business as an exercise coach for the geriatric population, all while staying deeply involved in her daughters' lives, whether it's coaching soccer or cheering from the sidelines. Amber loves learning, growing, and embracing new experiences, from exploring restaurants and outdoor adventures to nurturing close connections with family and friends. Her passion lies in balancing her role as a devoted mom with her drive to live fully and model resilience for her girls. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection. I'm Dr. Liz Hale, along with the beloved professor, Dr. Dave Schramm. And together we have dedicated our life's work to bringing you the best we have in valid marital research, along with a few tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. We're so happy to have you here today. Dave is going to join us next time. But for today, let's talk about life after divorce. That can be a time of rediscovery, new beginnings, tough times, even unexpected joy. It's a chance to grow and redefine what you want and open the door to other meaningful connections. Here to share her inspiring journey of hope, resilience, and dating after divorce is Amber Anderson. Welcome to the show, Amber.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
This is generous to really give us an inside scoop into your family of two daughters, and you've been divorced 4 years, I understand.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit more about your background, my friend, like where you're from or where you've lived, your marriage and divorce story, and how your children factored into your decisions along the way.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Cache Valley. I got married when I was 20 years old, and we immediately moved to Washington State, which was fantastic in a lot of ways. We were able to kind of pick up and move and start our own life somewhere else and somewhere new. And soon after that, we moved again to the East Bay area in California, where we absolutely loved it out there in Pleasanton, California. Made some great friends and great memories. But I had only had an associate's degree, so I knew I needed to continue my education. I looked at options in California. It was just so expensive to go to school out there, and we weren't able to afford me not working and going to school. So we came back to Utah, where my credits would transfer, and that's where I found the occupational therapy assistant program at Salt Lake Community College, which was a fantastic program. I loved it. Graduated from that in 2015 and moved right back out to California because we knew we loved California. Found out I was pregnant right after that. We had our first daughter out there, and life was hard. We were both working full time, and, bless my oldest heart, she was a really hard baby. So taking her to daycare, I would have to leave work to go and nurse her. She wouldn't ever take a bottle. It was very hard. We struggled with that. And around the same time, my ex-husband wanted to change careers. And so we made the move back to Utah, where we had family close by. And so there was a lot of moving around within the first few years of our marriage. But truly, we look back and we both loved that experience. We got to meet a lot of new people and experience new things along the way. Had our second daughter, 2.5 years later, and, still living in Cache Valley. So we've been back here in Cache Valley for 9 years. Like I said, I got my degree as an occupational therapy assistant from SLIC in 2015, and I've been working in that field with the geriatric population for 10 years, and I absolutely love it. I got divorced 4 years ago, and, making that decision was very, very hard. Me and my ex were very successful in a lot of ways in our marriage. And then obviously there were some parts that just weren't as successful. I was actually reading a book last night, and the line in it it's just a for fun book, but a line just said, this couple they were having a hard time. And they said, what happened? And it's like, 10 years ago, we were different people and we're not the same people we were 10 years ago. And do we like who we are now? And I think that's kind of just, without getting into the details of everything, we had both kind of changed and we had both grown and, some for the better and some was hard. We didn't match up on some things. And, along with other things, we decided that, divorce was the route we were going. However, that wasn't an easy decision to make. That we had 2 kids and, all you hear about is how divorce just ruins children. And it was very hard to think about, do I want to go through that and put my kids through that? But ultimately, I knew for me, the best way for me to be the best mom to my girls was to get a divorce. And that might sound crazy to some people. And, I never got married thinking I would ever get divorced. I don't think anybody does or anybody wants to. But I knew that I wanted to show my girls, a happy, good, healthy relationship and to not murder myself for just them staying in the marriage. I wanted them to see their mom thriving and being happy and enjoying her life as well as being a wonderful mother to them, to give them example to look forward to and look up to. So when it comes time for them dating and marrying, they have a wonderful example to look forward to.
Mm. So a lot of your inspiration really was your 2 daughters. Right? You want the world
Yes.
for them. Oh,
Yes,
it's such a blessing.
absolutely.
Because you're right, Amber. There's plenty of research that shows that marriage is hard. It's hard on adults. It's hard on families. It's hard on the system, the family system. It is not easy. I love your determination, however, that we're going to make sure this is a different storyline. We're going to do
Yes.
everything in our power. And it sounds like you and your ex-husband have really been very determined in that. He recently got married, I understand, this year.
Yeah. He got married earlier this year and she is wonderful. I've told her personally, I said, I couldn't have asked for a better stepmom for my kids. I really love her and appreciate her. And I hope that I, let her know that often and really just everything she does. And it's been really beautiful, honestly, because like you mentioned, I was determined if I am going to get divorced, I will make sure that my kids do not suffer, in any more ways than they will just from the matter of having 2 homes. So that was a lot to take on. A lot of times holding my tongue or him, I'm sure he held his tongue at times too. And truthfully, it wasn't just me that made, divorce and co-parenting and this relationship we have now. It wasn't just me. It's not one-sided. It was him and it was me. And we both decided that our girls were the number one. We will do whatever we need to make sure our girls are happy and safe and loved and cared for. And so, yes, we would, on the sidelines be having these, conversations or disagreements, but we never let the kids know. The kids were never involved. We always exchanged the kids at each other's houses. It wasn't like this, third party or, parking lot, or I'm not going in to see your father. Like it was very much just, yes, I will go in. There was a lot of my girls even asking, do you still love dad? Even though you're not married, do you still love him? And they need that, and of course I will always love your dad. He's your dad, like I will always love him as your father. And that comforted them so much to know that and to feel that. And even though it may have been hard and maybe awkward or uncomfortable just to be like, these are the things we're talking about, it was needed. So yes, he got remarried and it has been so great. We have a group text with me and my ex-husband and his wife where we all communicate about the kids. Hey, this is what's going on. Hey, this happened. How do we, talk to the girls about this? How are we going to manage this? Hey, we've got one thing. Can you help with one thing? It really, truly has been such a blessing to have seen the fruit of our labors, pay off.
Amber, that is something. And you know how unusual this is. Yes?
Yeah, yes, I do, because everyone I tell, they have that same reaction. They're like, this is not the norm. I'll even be out and, somebody else will have a divorce and they'll be talking like, how do how do you do that? How do you get along? Like, how can you say nice things about your ex? Because sometimes people just want to, say the negative and, have the will. But, honestly, it comes down to just the kids. And I think we both, just like I said, put them first. And I don't ever want my kids to think that I don't like their dad. And I'm sure he feels the same way. And so
I can appreciate how much that means to them. Because it's contention that hurts kids the most, right? Isn't that what kills children's hearts and adults' hearts too? So, good on you and your ex-husband and his new wife that there is this agreement, this determination to not have any contention. Have you looked back, Amber, divorced 4 years ago? What was it like initially? Is it hard? Did you regret your decision ever? Look back wondering, well, maybe I need to step back here?
Yeah. I mean, those are fantastic questions, and yes to everything. For me, I was the one who ultimately was like, yes, I want a divorce. And with that came a lot of second guessing. And what decision did I make? And what does that mean? And what does that look like going forward? There were many times, especially, I would say, within the first year or two, that I would question my decision. And ultimately I would have to really lean on, therapy, like going to therapy, reading any books, talking to my friends and family to help figure out what I was feeling and why. And a lot of times, you would hear you romanticize experiences or relationships in the past. And I did that a lot. But also, that is very hard. I used to tell my friends, because you make a wonderful group of divorce community up here. And that was very awesome to have in the first year of being divorced. You meet so many people and you're talking and sharing experiences. And it was just like, they were like, how do you not hate your ex? We all hate our exes. And I said, well, I don't hate my ex-husband. He's great in a lot of ways. And, but also it makes it harder, that decision and handling your decision to get divorced. It is a lot harder to work through post-divorce if you don't hate somebody. If you have that disgust or that hate and that, you don't even want to see him or talk to him, it's a lot easier. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I would think just forget it, put it away, never deal with it. But for me, it would always creep up, right? You see the good things, you remember the good things, you see them being a good dad to your girls and really stepping to the occasion. And those things are wonderful, but hard to see. And so a lot for me in the first year was distraction. I can look back and see that it was distraction. I was very busy. During that period, I had my kids 70% of the time. Now we're a 50 split. And that was just because he's a firefighter and his schedule is, 2 on, 4 off. And so I had kind of said, hey, look, let's just do 1 week on, 1 week off, and I'll take the girls, when you're at the station. It wasn't because he didn't want them, as much time. And so after a while, we're like, this isn't really working for either of us. Let's truly make this a 50-50. But so that first year I was very busy single momming, and that was hard and exhausting. And I just remember bedtime was just incredibly hard. They were 5 and 3. And so, maybe I should have had a more strict bedtime routine. I don't know. Bedtime was just, if I could get through it, that was the best thing. But on my time when I didn't have my girls, I would be gone. I was working full time. So I'd leave, go to work. And then after work, I was either going to the gym and then going rock climbing and then going out with friends. Each of those days I didn't have my girls. I wanted to meet more people. I wanted to do the things that brought me joy and made me who I am, which I'm grateful for that first year of doing all of those things. And it really built who I am or rebuilt who I was. I feel like I kind of lost myself in my marriage. And so it was very much a year of distraction, but very much a year of growth and learning who I am and what I love and enjoy.
So today, do you look back? Any regrets today?
No, I don't have any regrets because there were things I did that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm like proud of that. I don't know if I love that I did that, but I don't regret it because it shaped me and I took it and I would mold it into something like, how can I learn from that? How can I learn from that experience? How can I learn from that, mistake that I made? And, I think if I really regretted things, that would be hard. I think if there ever was something that I felt like I regretted, I would try to figure out a way to mend it, to make it right, or I don't know, heal from that and move forward and use that experience to help somebody else too.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Do you have any advice? You said your friends will all say, I don't know, how do you like your ex? We hate our ex. And any advice for those really wanting to do something to navigate a similar situation like you and your ex-husband have? I could use his first name. What's his first name?
Justin.
So Amber and Justin have this beautiful co-parenting connection. And what does it take? What's it take?
That's a huge question. I think it takes a lot of self-sacrifice, putting, your ego aside a lot, patience, having patience with, the other party and with yourself. I think a big thing is having boundaries, making sure you set boundaries with somebody, because it's not easy. And I'm sure it's either you or the other person is doing something that infringes upon their boundaries, and you're trying to get them, right? You want them to react a certain way. You want them to respond a certain way. And for the other party to, I think it's like gray rocking. Is that right? Where you kind of step back and you give them no response. There's nothing there, whether it's not answering the text or the calls or reacting in a certain way when they're trying to get at you, is just to press pause, take a few deep breaths. You don't have to answer the phone call. You don't have to answer that text. You don't have to answer that text message tomorrow. You just cannot answer it. I always say, unless it pertains to the kids, don't answer. They may have said something really mean to you. And I've told my friends, don't reply to that text message. They're just they're angry, they're upset, they're just trying to get at you.
Well, that's a good question then, Amber. Do you try to make the correspondence just about the kids, about kids only?
Yes, I would say that has been, our relationship, co-parenting relationship has been a lot of, we just communicate about the kids. We don't have these long drawn out conversations of trying to talk about things or fix things, or especially in the beginning, that was hard. That's where we really had to set boundaries on that. But it was just about the kids, and it was always meaningful because it was about the children. Now it's very nice actually, because we attend our children's extracurriculars, and we all sit by each other. Usually it's my parents, him and his wife, me, and everyone else who's there, my boyfriend who is there, and we all sit by each other. We're not separated. We're all clumped together, and everyone is talking. And so now, yes, when we're around each other, we will talk about other things. Oh, hey, you started this business. Oh, hey, how's your business going? Oh, did you see, X, Y, and Z? Or we talk about mutual friends. It's very nice to actually, now we've built a friendship, but in the beginning, it was just the kids. And I think that was beneficial. So that's what I would kind of say, is having those boundaries, knowing your self-worth and having respect for yourself, knowing that, if you say something or they say something that comes out of hurt or pain, give that other person some space. Because I know, there's been times where I've done or said things that I wish I could take back. And I, didn't like how that went. And it's almost better if the other person doesn't respond. They kind of give that space to me to be like, she's hurting. She's feeling this. I'm going to let her feel that. And we can just let that kind of go to the side. And we don't need to address it. We don't need to bring it up. We can just accept it. We don't have to take it in. We can just to the side and let it pass.
Wow. That's a good behavior tactic really for any relationship, even in marriage.
Yeah.
Let alone co-parenting. Those are pretty good things. I believe you when you say that you've learned so much. I think we all tend to have regrets. I think it's hard to do life without regrets, but nothing is ever wasted. Everything teaches us.
Yeah.
It defines us, refines us, helps us become the people I think that we could be more proud of.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key to anyone growing and progressing in life or whatever the situation is that you take those experiences and you learn something from it. I know for me, pertaining to dating, I would keep a log of the people I had dated, and I would write down things that I loved about them and things that I didn't. And then I knew, when I was dating somebody else, I would go back and I would cross check. And that might sound silly, but it kept me moving forward in a place that I wanted to, and kind of like my eyes on the prize, right? I didn't forget. These were things I didn't like. These were things I loved. I definitely want someone that has these qualities. I definitely don't want these qualities. And like I said, as silly as that might sound, I remember narrowing it down. And I remember turning to my coworker one day and I said, Zach, I am so close. I am so close to finding my person, because this is my list. And I'm almost there, like everyone kept gaining more the things I wanted and less the things I didn't. And I was right, like now I'm in a wonderful relationship with my boyfriend. It's been a year and a half, and he possessed, everything I wanted and some things that I didn't know that I wanted. And he comes with different things that aren't hard. They're not hard. They're just different, that make me grow and stretch in ways that I needed to grow and stretch. And it's just been such a journey, going through.
Dating today, dating now versus dating when you were without children, right? When you were younger and
Yes.
marrying for the first time, how clearly it's, definitely different, right? For starters, you're thinking of these two girls and what's best for them, as well as what's best for your heart. That's a whole nother dynamic.
Yes. Putting my kids first and everything. Of course, in their beginning, we had a lot of, me and my ex Justin, we had boundaries of, at what point do you introduce the girls to, a significant other? And I think that really helped. And it made us really think intentionally about what our own intentions were with dating. So, that was always there, keeping that in mind. For me with dating, especially now, I will say my boyfriend, it's been a beautiful journey, watching him connect to my girls on his own terms and his own timeline, but better, my girls loving him on their own timeline. I never pressured either one of them. I never forced them in situations or forced them to, really enjoy each other's company or want to spend time together. It was very much, we're just going to present these two parties and I'm in the middle, and I just let them decide where they're at. And there's been some really fun moments of my girls, my boyfriend Brian wouldn't be there and they'd be like, we like Brian. And I, instead of being like, oh, I know, isn't he the best? I would say, you do? How come? Like, why? And
What do
they
you like
would
about
say,
Brian?
"Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And they would answer with why they liked him. Also, that might sound kind of silly, but I've done that a lot. I've really questioned them instead of just steamroll it and take off with it, whatever they're saying. I really say, well, how come? Why do you think that? Why do you think Brian's a good boyfriend to me? Why do you say that? What are you seeing? And it makes me happy as, a mother to know, at least I hope that I am setting a good example to them and letting them have a choice in the matter. I think that's hard when kids, don't have a choice in the matter, because it is their life 100%. This would be someone who's in their life all the time, and let them grow and want that, it's a beautiful thing, but it's been a patient thing.
Mm-hmm. Kids really, they don't have a ton of choices, do they? I mean, they're kind of along for the ride with their parents, hopefully making the best decisions in their lives, right?
Yes. And they're so wonderful. And I just love them so much. And I think once again, to point back on what you're saying, how is it different, is that my goals dating, before marriage and now, was that, before I was young, I was 20 when I got married. And so dating, I was 19 years old, and I thought, I can't wait to get married and build a life with this person. And that included, for me, I wanted to have kids. I wanted to gain a career and establish a career and buy a home. And these were all like check boxes that I had. And so now I sit here dating and I'm like, okay, well, I have kids. I have my daughters. I have a career. I have a home. And what else is there? So dating now is really you're choosing someone. And yes, marriage should also be a choice of who you want to choose to spend the rest of your life with. But for me, it's really almost weighed heavily on me because it seems like a much more serious question of choosing someone that I truly want to just share my life with, because I don't have this naivety of, what, who knows what it's going to be like. It's marriage. It doesn't have that, secrecy to it anymore. You've been there, you've done that. I've checked all those boxes that I've had. So now I'm really dating for someone I want to spend my life with and love and enjoy and want to share all of those things, knowing that there will be hard times and there will be hard things. And how do you know, like, you're going to stick with that, push through that, use everything I've learned, all the tools, all the resources to make it last and be better,
Do you plan on more children? Would you like more children? Is Justin planning on more children?
I don't know about Justin. I think my girls would love more siblings. I know that they tell their stepmom all the time that they want, her to have a baby. They tell me all the time they want me to have another baby or 5. I think the other day my daughter said she wanted 8 more siblings. Which is so great. I love that they feel like they want to have more siblings. I think that means we're doing something right. 4 years ago when I got divorced, I did want to have more kids. And now dating, I'm with my boyfriend. He's never been married. He has no kids. And I just am getting older. Every year I'm getting older and my kids are getting older. My youngest is 7. I don't know what that looks like. It's not at the top of my list anymore. I don't want to say I don't want to have kids. It's not at the top of my list. If me and my boyfriend end up getting married and he decides that he would like to have a child, then I would happily have one. However, blending families, I've heard, is just incredibly difficult and hard and challenging, but also so rewarding. Where he doesn't have kids and I have 2, he said, I've wanted kids, but you have 2, and that is great for me. And so we're on the same page here where it really makes sense for us, but, it's not in the immediate cards. So, and I just take it situation by situation. And it's molded, of course, because I have dated people who have had kids and I was happy to bring them in, and I think that is a good thing to have, was that I was flexible in knowing, what that future might look like on the kid realm, marrying someone who has kids, wanting more kids or not. So,
yeah. Do you have some people who question your decision to date, to be divorced, raising young children, and dating? My reason I ask is my very dear friend divorced, has 4 boys, all getting older now. 2 are in college, but her neighbor really, really gave her a bad time when she announced that she had found a special guy. Actually, someone from long ago that she dated, and they've reconnected 20 years later. And it really caused some alarm from my dear friend. And she thought, oh my gosh, people, I think it's the Dr. Laura principle, right? Of staying single and raising your children until they're out of the house. Have you had support? Have you had a lack of support, Amber? Both?
I have had tremendous support. I feel like I have the best family and the best friends who also keep me sane. They keep me honest. I tell them all the time, I'm going to tell you the good and the hard with anyone I'm dating, because I need somebody else to know the truth, the whole truth, and not have those rose-colored glasses on all the time. And, like I said, my friends and family have been supportive from the very beginning. There are other people, definitely, who have been like, I would never date. I don't know how you're doing this. I don't know why you would. That's going to be so hard for your kids. Or I don't know why you would date somebody who has kids. I don't know why you would date someone who doesn't have kids. There are those people who say that. And they're all over the board. And I think the biggest thing for me was, like I said, having that great support system of the people in my life that have helped keep me accountable and keep me progressing forward and help me make good decisions. I remember being in therapy and I was really frustrated, honestly, that the therapist wasn't telling me what I should do. I was like, can't you just tell me what to do? You're the professional here. And they said, I will never tell you what to do. That is up to you. Like, I will help have these conversations and help guide and ask you questions, but ultimately you make those choices. And I was like, oh, like, seriously? Like I have to make my own choices. And truly knowing that, like, I will talk to friends and family, but at the end of the day, I get to choose, I get to choose what my life looks like. But having those people who will hold you accountable is key, I think. And so I never questioned what I was doing, why I was wanting to date and remarry. I never questioned that because I had a great support system who would keep me in check. And I hope everyone can have that. And I think a big thing of that is being open to hearing something you might not want to hear. I've had friends or family say, I don't like them. I don't think they're good for you. I don't like that they did this and this and this. And I have to take a step back and say, I understand. I think you're right. And there were times, I'm going to give them one more chance. I'm going to give them one more chance. And I usually did give them one more chance because this whole process of dating after divorce was learning how patient can you be? How forgiving can you be? How much grace can you give? And those things, for sure, 100%, especially in the beginning, I gave way too much grace, way too forgiving. And you kind of have to like tailor it in to find out where is that line, You can't let somebody just get away with everything, but you also need to be able to forgive and understand the situation. And I mean, there's so much to it, but
I hope you write a book, Amber.
No, I would love to. I truly have thought about that for many years, and I would love to do that, and I'll put it on my list.
Yeah, good. Put it on your long list. Speaking of books, was there anything that helped you most on this particular journey?
Yeah, I read a couple of books. I, of course, would read any sort of psychology article I could find online, just anything. And you have to be careful with those, I know, and to take bits and pieces here and there. But some books I read was actually one called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I loved that one because it really helped me step into me as my own person and honoring myself and my passions, and really encouraged me to live for my girls, live for them. I want to show them an example that they admire and want to be when they grow up, and not someone who just puts their needs to the side and does everything for my kids. Yes, I do so much for my kids. I love being involved in my kids' lives, and that is a passion. They are my passion. But also, do I love to rock climb or mountain bike or play soccer or be with my friends and have good friends that I love spending time with? And I think all those things are so important for my kids to see in their mom. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. They need to see their mom having fun, taking risks, being brave, going on vacations. So they have this, idea of a life that they want to have, while they can also be in a loving relationship and have kids, And so that was a wonderful book. Another one is How to Not Fall in Love with a Jerk. I think that's the title. That one is a very good, just pick up and read. It kind of, like I said, keeps me in check, reading and be like, oh, am I seeing any of these things in myself? Not only in the person you're dating, but are keeping yourself. Are you introspective enough to look and be like, oh, I do that and I don't like that. How do I fix it? So that's a fantastic book of like checks and balances to not only read
that book around the campus here. Yep. Excellent.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I just pick it up and flip to any page and read it, and you're going to gather something there.
You get a nugget. Yep.
And then the other one I actually haven't read, but I've talked to a lot of friends about, and it's on my list to read, was The Body Keeps the Score. And I think, having not read that, but I've read, know what it's about, and I've talked to people and read little excerpts from it, is that it is so true and very sad. There have been a lot of moments where it is really sad how your body reacts so fiercely to something when you don't really want it to, but it does. And how do you combat that and address it and learn from it and work through it and prevent it from happening again, is a lot of that work on yourself. So I've done a lot of that. There's been a lot of times where I've had to really check myself and see why I'm reacting that way and explain thoroughly to the person that I'm dating, like why I'm reacting the way I am. And I don't like it, but this is why. I know I need to fix it. I need to work on it, but just have patience with me and I will do better.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
It's such beautiful ownership. Do you find that you're meeting men who are also doing the work, on themselves? I would imagine that could be a deal breaker or a deal maker.
Yeah. It was hard. It was really hard. I feel like I'm such a thinker and I'm such a, I want to figure out why. And so I do a lot of work on myself and a lot of introspection and a lot of willing to talk to my friends and hear the things I don't want to hear. I would say in my experience, most people are not like that. A lot of people get very defensive. A lot of people just have their justifications, or a lot of people might say, well, you get what you get. This is who I am. This is how it's going to be. I don't think it's wrong. You should probably deal with it. I've encountered a lot of that. That's not to say everyone was like that. I did also date and meet a lot of great guys who I learned so much from and really took a lot of those key things I wanted in my person and put them on that list because they were so wonderful. And there were some very patient and loving and generous and mild-tempered things and willingness to hear something that they might not want to hear and to do better. And so, yeah, I would say there was both. And it's tremendous when you can find somebody who does react that way and shares the same beliefs.
I just think I have such a tender spot for singles because I was one for many decades. I didn't marry till 50. And I think that we do have a responsibility to each other in the dating world to be good to each other, to be honest, and to leave each other maybe a little bit better than we found each other.
Yeah, that's my friend's favorite line. She's also single, and that's her favorite thing. You always leave someone better than you found them, and also yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love it. All right, my friend. Well, you're all over social media. Amber, you offer different coaching options and you have resources. Tell us a bit about those and where people can find you and learn about what you offer.
Yeah, so I just have a personal Instagram account, Amber Anderson, but I also started a side business where I do actually home exercise for the geriatric population, which is Move Safe Advocates. I don't have anything for, life coaching or post-divorce. However, like I said, I would love to be able to get into any of that or write a book someday. And I guess just keep your ears open for maybe the day that comes through.
Mm-hmm. We're cheering you on. I hope that for you, Justin, his beautiful bride, and others that will be joining this clan, however, that you continue to do so well together and have this joint effort and put these children first. It's really quite lovely. We don't know what's around the corner, right? None of us do.
Exactly.
But you are determined enough to make sure that things stay truly steady and kind and graceful and forgiving. I love that. We love to ask all of our guests as we wrap up one particular question in honor of the name of our podcast. What do you think, Amber, is the key to a stronger marriage connection?
I think in hopes of everything I've learned so far is being able to have the hard talks. I didn't really bring that up, but having the hard talks with somebody, something that is on your mind, that is causing you some anxiety, you just got to have that talk. You just got to hit it head on. You got to sit down and say, hey, look, here's what I'm feeling. I found the best way to address things and issues in relationships is to say, hey, this is how I've been feeling. This is why I think I'm feeling this way. This is why I do feel this way. This is what I'm gathering from you. Can you please tell me what's going on? I think having the hard talks, just let them feel safe opening up to you, because I think a lot of us will get defensive. We don't want to be wrong, or we don't want to have hurt somebody. But if you have an issue and you're having anxiety over it, go to them and just do it. Just have that talk immediately. There's no need to wait. There's no need to have like the perfect scenario. But open yourself up and be vulnerable first, I think is key. I hope that is key, to be able to go to someone, be vulnerable, say, I want to understand. I want to be better. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. Can we please talk about this? So I'd hope being upfront and just leading with courage and vulnerability, and the answer will always be the right answer, is what my motto has always been. I've dealt with a lot of rejection, and I've had a lot of success. And I think that in each of those moments, I am okay with whatever the answer is going to be, because it's ultimately the right answer, even though it might not be something that I think I want.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had some people you were dating who just couldn't even go there? I mean,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think that's a lot to ask.
It's
not too much to ask of someone. I'm just saying it's a lot to ask of someone who maybe isn't practiced at it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely dated people who just could not even go there, just were kind of at a loss of words. And obviously those relationships just crumbled, almost immediately.
Of course.
Because
that's a good way to sift through.
Yes, 100%. And my boyfriend now, he is so good. He's so good at just listening and validating and understanding, but he doesn't just conform to whatever I want, right? He's not just like, okay, you're right. He's very much of like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I understand how you're feeling that way. I don't want you to feel that way. How can we make it better? What can we both do? I can do this different. Maybe could you do this different? And we figure it out. And I think that is 100% key to a great relationship.
It's such a good time to be dating, to be married. I mean, as far as we know so much more than we ever had before about what makes a relationship thrive. Strongermarriage.org. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Amber, being in the area you are, so many wonderful resources there that with your dedication, I think you are going to be unstoppable.
Thank you.
What's the take-home message for sure that you just want all of us to remember from our discussion today? Something stand out?
Yeah, just stay positive and know your goals and know your worth and love yourself, and have your priorities, of course, in line of where you want them to be, and always stay true to those and keep yourself in check. No one's perfect, and be open to what you need to work on yourself.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we're not looking for perfect, are we? But a good fit, yes, where it's a win-win. And, I have a friend who wrote the book, Real Love in Dating, and he talks about, dating with our worst foot forward, because when you date with your best foot forward, everybody's got that stinky foot. And sometimes you find out about that stinky foot a little too late.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say that might be my greatest takeaway is leaving people, relationships, hearts better than you found them. Stronger, Well, Amber Anderson, thank you so much for being with us today, for really speaking so openly about a really tender topic that's kind of loaded. It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage, and I really admire the courage that you have.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Unapologetic about, here I am, this is my decision, and going forward, this is what I'm looking for, and I want to teach others that same kind of courage. So good for you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me here.
Well, that's all we have for now today, friends. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. But do remember, it's the small things that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more.
Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.